In this lesson, we'll look into the process of adding a stretchy limb setup to our rig. Here's where we're going to want the distance tool to come into play, so let's go ahead and select that. And what we're going to want to do is tie two distance locators going from the top of our leg, our thigh bone, all the way to the ankle. Okay, and from there we'll be able to grab the distance and write an expression that tells us if the leg goes past this distance, going in a downward direction, then go ahead and stretch the leg for us. But as we move up, we want to deactivate our stretch so we can maintain our knee bend. So that's going to be very important how we set up that expression. Let's go ahead and work on that. We'll start by tying in our locators. We'll hold V, invert snap to the top, and then end our connection going again to our around our ankle bone. So we'll just hold V again, making sure our mouse is around that vicinity, and go ahead and add the next locator. Great. So now that we have them, we can go ahead and work on cleaning things up a little bit. We have two locators here. We can select and scale them down a bit. How about 0.28, around that size? So they're not so large, but still selectable. Great. And then from here, we can go ahead and give them names. So for our first locator, we can call that DST, or dist loc, for distance locator, so we know what it is. And so we know where it is associated with, we can call that _R _ thigh 01. Great. And now we can go to the next locator, and if we wanted to, just copy the name of the first one, go to the next, just paste the name to replace it, and replace the thigh with ankle. Excellent. Now, as far as where they go in our groups, what I've gone ahead and did that is slightly different from the quad kit, but it's really easy to set up, is just added extra groups in here that basically it says to transform, the category label of this group. And again, it's as simple as making a group and getting rid of or locking and hiding all of the attributes save the visibility in case you want to adjust that. But this is just for presentation to keep everything organized. And then underneath that, I've added a couple more groups similar to how this one's made, only this time one is the visibility is off, one the visibility is on, and I've labeled that as such to keep, again, everything organized. So that's very simple to set up, and once we're done with this, we'll go ahead and add them to the right groups. And then as far as our distance dimension, that's going to go under our extra nodes. Okay, since we don't want that scaling with the rest of our rig, just our locators, so we'll put those under hidden transforms because we're not going to want to see those after we're done setting them up. So let's go ahead and label our distance dimension. We'll call that dist _R _ leg, so we know again what it's associated with. Great. Now that this is done, we need to make sure that our locators are going to stay with our leg wherever we move it. So in order for that to happen, all we need to do is take this top locator and point constrain it. We could point constrain it right to our bone thigh. So we'll select the thigh bone followed by the locator, okay, driver, then driven, and then go to constrain, point constrain. Now, at the bottom here, since all of our pivots should be aligned, okay, at our ankle, including our control, we can take this locator and point constrain it to our control. So let's go ahead and select the control. We'll select the locator, and we can go to constrain, point constrain. Okay, so now watch what happens if we select the control and move it. Notice, okay. All right, so and we can see our distance tool moving, telling us our distance is increasing. So we're just about ready to work on that expression. Well, what is important to know is that this number that we see in our viewport is not the same as the actual distance that we're going to need. Notice it greatly differs. So we're going to want this number here. Now, before we write our expression, what we need to do is with our control selected, we basically need to see at what point when we select our control and move it down just in the Y, at what point is the leg totally locked up? Okay, just about what point. So we'll just go right to where it locks up, and then we'll select our distance tool, and we can see, okay, we can round that off to about 90. All right, so we can see that the leg is going to be locked up at 90, and we're going to need that value in there to make sure that our stretch works right. So once we have stretched the leg, let's now work on that expression. Okay, so we can just select one of our bones we're going to apply that expression to, and that's going to be our scale X that we're going to want the bone to scale in. Okay, as we can see, we can go ahead and select our bones and see, all right, that's the direction we want to scale in. So again, selecting one of our bones, and we'll be able to apply to all of them once we have made our expression. But we'll go to our scale X, right click, and go all the way down to editors. Now it is getting cut off here, but you can go to editors and expression editor, or what we can do, and since we'll be using it quite often, is we can hold Control Shift to go to window, go down to animation editors, and add the expression editor right to our shelf. Okay, so we just keep adding more and more onto this. So there's our expression editor. Okay, and since we will need this name in here, we'll need our thigh name. What we can do is first make sure that our by expression name is checked so we can see all of our expressions. We'll give it a name. We can call this the stretchy limb expression. Okay, and now we're ready to work on the actual expression to get this functioning right. So we'll put a comment and we'll say this is for our legs because we're going to also need it for our arms. Then we'll go down and we'll begin. So we'll say if open close parentheses. Then we could also put our open curly bracket, go 2 lines or so underneath and put our closed curly bracket. Okay, so just so we know that everything needs to get ran. So we'll say if our distance dimension shape dot distance, okay, not just distance dimension, but the actual shape here, and we could even see that if we select our distance dimension, go to the attribute editor and check out under the distance dimension shape, that's where our attribute is. Okay, the distance. So we could just copy the name from here, the attribute editor, copy and paste. Okay, right between the parentheses. So if that shape dot distance is greater, remember when we move the control down, the value became greater, the distance. So if it's greater or equal to what value? Equal to 90. Remember, that's what we established where the leg was stretched, stretched to just where it started to stretch. So once it's equal to 90, then what do we need to do? Then we need to tell it that those bones that we want them to be associated with, this expression that's going to be our thigh all the way to our second knee bone, but not our ankle. We won't need to tie it to that. Okay, so if it's equal to 90, then we need to say that our bone underscore our underscore thigh 01 dot sx or scale x is equal to. And now what is it going to be equal to? How are we going to type this in so that it'll function right? And what I'll do is even adjust our view in here so it doesn't get too cluttered. Well, what we need to do is basically tell it that once it goes past 90, then basically in order for everything to move relative, we need to say that this distance, okay, is divided by 90. Okay, and once we have that, you'll notice that everything will move coherently or together. So we'll just take our distance, copy it, and we'll paste it, right? And now we need to say that it's going to be divided by 90 again, so everything can move relative. So if we go ahead and now put our semicolon to basically say, all right, period, this is what we want to run, we'll copy that line and we'll need to add it to the next line underneath. So we'll just hit enter, tab, and then control V, and we'll do it one more time since we have another bone to apply it to. So we'll hit tab and then control V. Now we need to just switch the names of thigh with the appropriate bone. So the first appropriate bone, that's going to be our knee A, as we can see. So we'll type that in. So we'll just replace thigh with knee A and make sure everything is typed correctly. So that's knee capital A. And the other one is just knee capital B. So lowercase k, N-E-E, capital B. Now we're not done yet. Now we need to basically say if it goes in the other direction, if it's not greater than or equal to 90, then we put our else statement. Else, put our open curly bracket, close curly bracket, making sure it's a curly bracket. And then in here, we'll put tab, then we'll need to say else our scale is still equal to 1, again, to preserve our knee. So that's going to be bn underscore r underscore thigh 01 dot sx is equal to 1. And then put the semicolon. To run that line, copy it, hit enter, tab, control V, just as we've done before. And again, tab, control V. All right, great. So now we just need to switch these lines from thigh to knee A and to now knee B. Okay, so with all of these things said and done, what we now have is an expression that says once it reaches past 90, okay, or equal to 90, then our thighs will stretch, or excuse me, our bones for our legs will stretch relative to our distance so that they will stretch correctly, just the way we like them to. But if they go in the opposite direction, then keep them at a value of 1 so our knee will still bend. So with all of these things said and done, let's go ahead and hit create. Notice no error, everything seems to work fine. If we minimize our expression editor, go to our foot control. With that selected, we can go to our channel box, so just so we can widen our view and move that. And notice we're getting this really cool stretch. We could even go ahead and see our textured view of our character to see what we're going to be getting. All right, so now we have this cartoony stretch going on. This is really cool. Well, that is the expression for the stretch, but we have a few more things to do with it. We're not only going to make sure that we can turn it on and off, but we also need to make sure that it's going to scale with our rig. And we need to apply it to our left side as well. So we have a few more things to do to wrap this up. But we're going to stop the lesson here. And I do recommend, if you need help, just go back over the lesson and make sure you have this all soaked in before you move on. But in the next lesson, we'll continue setting up this functionality.